Okay, so the recording started. So again, it's topic 10, and really I'm going to just cover the deliverables. And right now for this topic, there's basically just the two participation activities. So I want to clearly explain that. We have a few slides, so basically I'll talk you through the participation activities and then get on with the remainder of the slides. And then I'd like to also, remind you that, when I emphasize areas that are highlighted in yellow, and especially if they're highlighted in yellow and they're bolded at that, it means that that's an area that you should focus on in the studies. And again, it's all about, you take a look at, my commentary presentation. That's what you start with. The focus then goes towards going into the
Excuse
topic.
me, sir. I think you have no audio. Oh, I can't hear you.
I don't see myself. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so that might be a specific issue then. All right. Okay, so I'll keep going. So basically, you start with my commentary presentation, and then that leads you to the 70+ slide PowerPoint presentation in the topic. And then what you should do, and especially when you're doing the participation topic, some of them are a little more complicated, you go to the video recordings that are in that topic so that you can understand those better, and that will help you with the test as well. And then if that's not enough, then you go to the course outline and you take a look at what topic we're on, and that course outline in I think page 5 or whatever will tell you, which chapters of the e-text that are part of the Pearson Rebel that you can read to be able to get more clarification. Okay, so that's where we're at on that, and then I'll just get started here on topic 10, and it's really the marketing side of management principles, and really to understand a lot of the key content kind of pieces so that you can apply management principles more effectively. And so that, it goes back to what I said earlier, is that know the business you're in, and knowing the business really gives you the insights on how to apply those management principles, whichever ones that you subscribe to, and then whichever ones that, are situational in terms of what fits in that particular situation. All right. And again, okay, somebody in the chat, can you hear me okay? Okay, and then again, you should really understand at least 4 or 5 different management styles to be able to deal with, the situations that you're dealing with, and based on the conditions, and then the the context of the followers. All right, what they're all about. Okay, so let's just get started. So there's 2 participation activities, which is kind of standard participation, topic 10A and 10B, and both are group team exercises. And again, just a reminder as well that on my commentary presentation, you can't click on these links, right? You need to go to the Blackboard topic 10 to be able to click on those links to get to what you need to do. All right, so I want to explain this, this first one. And what you're required to do is to create an ideal client, and I'm going to explain that in the following slides, for Tim Hortons. And what you need to understand around the ideal client is that they're based on what target market segments that Tim Hortons is interested in, and so they may have several ideal clients. All you need to do is just pick one of them, and we're going to get into some slides on how to determine which one you should pick. But having said that, if you go to the weekly participation under week 11, what I've done is I've taken 2 slides that I want you to use as a template, and you can just take them off of this presentation as well, and I'll just show you what those 2 slides are. So this is a 2-slide piece of what I'd like you to do in terms of, in terms of submitting a submission. So use this as a template. So you're going to come up with an ideal customer, and then you're going to have a description for that ideal customer, and then you're going to fill in, these different categories to be able to give me a sense of, okay, here's an ideal customer of Tim Hortons, and there's some criteria that I'll go through. So again, this this particular link is just a link to a document that asks you questions so that you can have information to chart in here to fill this out. And I don't want you to submit this document. It's just the questions that you can look at to be able to do this. This is the only document that I want you to submit, this 2-pager, and it's on PowerPoint. And like I said, you can either go to the weekly commentary, week 11, and just pull off that 2 slides as the one file, or just pull these 2 slides off and start working with them. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is that we're going to talk a lot about competitive advantage, and what VRIO is. It's a framework to be able to analyze, how robust a competitive advantage is, and so that, let's just go back to this piece here. This link right here, okay, this link right here is a template that I want you to fill out that looks like this. All right, and what you're going to do, you can see on the resource capability. You're gonna take a look at some typical resources. This could be human capital, or this could be organizational capital, or this could be physical capital. And specifically then in human capital, you might pick out employee training, and because that employee training is one of the key attributes of competitive advantage that Tim Hortons use. And how are you going to do this on both of them? Chat GPT, right? That's the way to get it done. You ask the questions based on what you're looking for, and it should do that. And let me give you an example. All right, so like right now, my daughter has a practice, and she's a physiotherapist and deals with the pregnant lady type of physiotherapy that's required, and I think it's called neonatal or something like that. But in any case, I talked to her and I said, you should have a description of your ideal customer. And she said, yeah, Dad, well, I know what my customers are. I really don't need that. So I thought, what I'll do then is I will create one for her, right? And so what I did was I went through, all the questions to be able to take a look at what neonatal physiotherapy looks like, and then talked about, the type of practice that my daughter has, and I went to Chat GPT. Within 10 minutes, I had the information that I could fill out these 2 pages. Now, see, this is a client that I've worked with to create an ideal customer for. It's called the Art Barn. It's Newton Street Art Barn, and it took me with the client about half a day to produce this. It took me a few minutes with Chat GPT. So that's why I want you to kind of take a look at that, and use that information. Just let me know that you've used Chat GPT. And then on the second one, on 10B, there's no reason why you can't go to Chat GPT and ask them questions about, well, who are the most important target market segments for Tim Hortons in Canada, and that's likely to identify them for you. And then based on one of those target markets, create this ideal customer. And you can see on this one, since this was an art barn, it's basically what this art barn was all about is that it was a local museum, basically, and they would feature local art and crafts from artisans that were local, and they'd sell it, and they'd feature it, and they'd demonstrate it, and everything else. And so that's where we got this Amy Artsy, all right? Artsy because it's art, all right? And then we came up with this based on one of their key target market segments, and we went through all these criteria to be able to define that, all right? So that's the long story short on how easy this can be to be able to create an ideal customer. And it has some great advantages, because you should take a look at this ideal customer as, you know, that person is right across from you at a desk, and you're interviewing them, and you're trying to find out, you know, how can I make a sale, and how could I enhance this person's livelihood or life or benefits, right? And I'm going to tie that into a value proposition, you know, that your organization or Tim Hortons has, and that should come together, and that'll come in the next few slides. Okay, so I'm talking pretty fast. I just want you know, are you understanding, you know, am I going too fast? Can you give me a thumbs up on, you know, if things are okay? Are we okay so far? And if not, please unmute and ask a question. Okay, I don't see any thumbs up here. Okay, good.
Sorry,
right.
I have one question, Gary.
Go ahead.
So should we use the template that you have on the PowerPoint to create our ideal customer?
Yes, yes, these two slides. And all you have to do then is, you know, keep the headings and then change the information, you know, below the headings. Okay?
Okay.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah,
and again, you can pull these slides right off of this commentary presentation, or you can go to week 11 and you'll see it'll say ideal customer template, and it's the 2 slides. Okay?
Okay. And is there a minimum number of points we should have per heading?
Well, you know, basically, you know, just try to fill up these 2 pages. And, you know, if it's a little sparse, that's fine. But as long as I see that you've put some rigor into it, and like I said, when I did the one for my daughter's clinic, it was just amazing, you know, how it really covered all these points. I was flabbergasted, right? So that should be a good outcome for you as well. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so that's where that is. And again, so when you're filling this out, these are the resources that you put on this side, and you don't have to put, you know, let's go with just 3 of them, all right, or maybe 4, you know, 3 of them, and then that will give me enough idea that, hey, you understand this. But I'll tell you something as well. You know, the test is going to cover a fair amount of points around VRIO, and this is really kind of going to put you up to date on what you should know about it as well. So it's really going to help you. And then also, I believe that it's one of the questions in your team in your team paper that you may opt to take. All right. So the more that you put into this, you know, the better off that you're going to be. And again, that team paper, you know, you don't do all the 30 questions, right? You do read the instructions, and you only do up to 100, just above, at 100 or just above 100 marks. To be able to know how many. Normally that's, you know, that's about 10 questions out of the 30 roughly. Okay, so let's see how this all kind of fits in. And you know, we talked about strategic planning last time, and I'm hoping that a lot of you have seen now that video that I produced. I sent a notice out. It's on YouTube. The announcement is there. You can go to the link, and it covers off strategic planning and the 2 participation activities that you have to do for topic for topic 9. Okay, so let's start with the strategic plan, and I use an aircraft analogy, and I have to use feet. I can't, you know, I'm using English units here, but let's say that you know, like an airplane flies, a jet flies at 100,000 foot level, right? Well, consider that 100,000 foot level as the strategic plan, and then as you come lower, say 50,000 feet, you know, that's where you do like the annual business plan. And then you go down to 40,000 feet, and that's where you'll do the annual marketing plan. And then, you know, the annual communication plan is roughly at 40,000 feet as well, right? Because the annual communication plan complements the marketing plan, and I'll tell you the reasons for that. And then also, you need to consider in today's world, ever since post-pandemic, a digital marketing plan. Because, you know, it used to be a bricks and mortar, like a physical location where you would buy something. Today, it's bricks and clicks. You know, it's a hybrid of what you can find locally and then what you can access to on a digital basis. And I'm going to talk about, you know, the customer journey, you know, in this presentation, and you're going to see how this all comes together. But this is sort of, you know, my language about cascading. So the strategic plan really is, is the overall, priorities of the organization over a timeline of about, 5 to 10 years. And then an annual business plan roughly is about 1 to 3, but most of them are 1-year plans. And oh, by the way, the 1-year plan is always associated with a 12-month budget, right? When you're dealing with the strategic plan, you're dealing a lot with capital allocation. When you're dealing with the business plan, you're really talking about operation and maintenance costs. All right, and then just slightly below that is the offshoot for the marketing plan that is really expresses some of the priorities that you've seen in the business plan. And then the the communication plan really has to complement the annual marketing plan. Excuse me. So this is why the annual communication plan is so important, is that so many businesses fail when it comes to campaigns. And why? Because they send confusing messages. And your communication plan should have everything aligned. So let's just say that you have maybe 3 offerings that you want to market, right? And say that you're going to a trade fair and you want to have brochures. Well, you want each brochure for that offering to look similar. Why? Because we get information across to our customers through repetition. And if they see one brochure that's designed a little differently from the other brochure, well, then you're really kind of confusing them, and they don't understand, the stepping of how you're making them aware of the product, and then how their features and benefits will make them, much better off, and then how to be able to access that product and everything else. If it's all done the same way, well, then you've really achieved a lot of alignment, for a lack of a better term, to be able to get your messages across. And then, I can compare that to, an ATM. When ATMs first came out, well, people didn't know how to use them, right? So they had strict ways of using the ATM. And guess what? Most ATMs across, countries, they all operate the same way. Why? Because if they all operated differently, then it would be really difficult for consumers to be able to use them, right? It's no different with the communication plan, looking at the offerings of a marketing plan. Make it all consistent, and then so that they totally understand the brand and what and have confidence in that brand, that it means something, and then have the trust that, hey, what you're telling them is right, and then the further training that they could understand what you're doing, because you're doing it all the same way. So that's that part. And then on the digital marketing plan, it's just, again, since the pandemic especially, it's always a hybrid. And so that, people might go to your website and look at a product and know all about it, but they'll want to come into your retail operation to buy it because they want the experience. And that's really, I'm describing the attitudes of millennial target markets. They really want the experience. They'll know all about what what you have, but they want to go in and they want to hear the story. They want to touch it, they want to feel it, they want to move it around. So again, that digital marketing plan is it's really just an augmentation of your annual marketing plan. Okay, so this just kind of explains this all over again. So you can see the strategic plan, where you're getting the high level direction, the vision, mission, future goals, and the overall timeline. So it'll have a timeline of 5 to 10 years. And then the business plan will pick out some of the key priorities from the strategic plan that needs to be executed in the first 1 and sometimes 1 to 3 years. And here's where the business plan now describes how the current business functions work and what they will undertake to be able to work through and execute on the strategic plan. And that's the who, what, is the company. You can see the financial projections will come out of the budgeting, and then send a piece, send the messages for the marketing plan and the operating plan, and that's where the marketing plan comes in. And now you're talking about who are the intended customers. Well, that's the target markets, and this is the ideal client that, you know, we want you to define for maybe one of those target markets. You know, what's happening with these customers in the marketing research, and you're going to see that in the ideal customer, you know, we're not only looking at demographics, we're looking at psychographics. We're looking at what they're all about, where are they spending their time, all those things that I'm going to give you more details about. And then given your value proposition, you know, how do you resonate with them, and how do you make your value proposition, you know, real to them and relevant, and so that they will come, you know, to you, and you will have competitive advantage in offering your products and services. So that's how this all seems to come together. All right, so what does the marketing plan have? And you can see here, you know, I've got this illustration. It goes through all the pieces, but you know, it has a functional strategy. Like, marketing is a function of the overall business. It talks about target markets. It talks about product mix. And traditionally, you know, the product mix was the 4 Ps, and that was 50 years ago. And again, because of the evolution, you know, through digitization, it's really now, it's, you know, sometimes if you go to the internet, you'll see 6 Ps, you'll say 7 Ps. I'm going to show you 8 Ps, and we're going to talk about that so that you really get a good sense of what you need to do, because the product mix is really the components of your strategy. Like, each one of those Ps is a tactic, right, that you use through. And one thing you should understand is it's all about the strategy. It's got nothing to do with economies of scale or you know, how elaborate that is. It's about how that you're going to create that link with the customer, and how, you know, what you need to sell to them and whatever. And then the pricing strategy, being one of the Ps, is very important. And you should know a lot more. And oh, by the way, look at it's highlighted as well. So that I'm going to talk about the pricing strategy a little bit, and then the messaging strategy as well. But this illustration is really to kind of show you that, hey, you know what? It sort of mirrors what a business plan looks like. It sort of mirrors, you know, a somewhat of what a strategic plan looks like, because, you know, you go, you know, from a vision, you know, you're working with the vision and the mission of the organization. You create a, you know, you do a situational analysis, just like we do, you know, an environmental scan or PESTLE and Porter's 5 Forces analysis and the McKinsey 7S. That's all part of a situation analysis. Now you do it, you know, on a very focused area on the customers that you want to target. And then you create that marketing strategy, and then introduce the tactics of that market strategy, because in the marketing strategy, you're going to set some goals, and those goals then will define, you know, the tactics around now we'll say the 8 Ps, and then, you know, at the end, it's, you know, what gets measured gets done. So understanding the right key performance indicators, and making sure that you set them up so that you're monitoring the right things, and then, you know, what gets measured gets done. Okay, so that's the bit about the marketing plan. So let's just talk about these in terms of going to market. Well, you identify that target market. You know, these are the 7 crucial steps. You define the value proposition, and what the value proposition is. For some of you, if it's the first time you've heard of the term value proposition, that's the value that your offering has. And you take a look at what keeps my customer awake at night. And what I'm going to do then is that I'm going to have a value proposition in terms of how I produce that offering and what that offering attributes, features, and benefits have to be able to solve their issues. All right, and that's why they call it a value proposition. And then you set some clear objectives, and then you develop that marketing plan, and then you build a sales pipeline. And that's something, as a marketer, what I found in my experience is that you really need to understand sales if you're going to be a good marketer. And why? Because you got to understand how the sales pipeline works. And essentially, you can see here, it's called a sales pipeline, but, you know, what's this illustration here? It's a funnel, right? It's really an opportunity funnel. So I'll just kind of go through some terms, right? So with the opportunity funnel or a sales pipeline, you start with leads, right? And let's just say that you have 1,000 leads that you're working with, and they come in either because you've paid per click with Google, or you've put an ad out in a magazine, a business magazine, and people are writing in and say, hey, I want to know more information about your product. So 1,000 leads. And then what happens is you want to qualify those leads so that find out, are they potential customers? So out of those 1,000 leads, you might qualify 500, and they really match with your value proposition, right? And then on that piece, you might want to go back to them now and find out a little more so that you can really get a sense of how you can contact them and what's important, right? So that's sort of a second qualification. And then what you do is then you target them by email or you visit them personally. And then, out of those, 500 that have been qualified, you might secondarily qualify them as 200 that are really hot prospects. And you go visit those 200 hot prospects, and then you get 10 sales, right? So you take a look at, you're starting at 1,000 leads and you get 10 sales. That's the funnel. And if you start understanding and tracking the information, you know what your hit rate is, so that then you start with, okay, if I want to make 100 sales, well, how many leads do I need based on the product offering or service offering that I'm trying to sell? So that's what this pipeline is. The sales pipeline. And if you understand how this all goes about and how they qualify and why, then you implement that in your marketing strategy to help these salespeople, do a better job of making sales. And then from there you develop the pricing strategy, and then the metrics to be able to, what gets measured gets done. Okay, so that's that piece. But I want to emphasize is that you understand the digital marketing wheel, because now that's becoming, and it's overtaking a lot of just retail in-person sales or even wholesale in-person sales, because it's all done digitally now. Why? A lot because of virtual reality, in terms of, or how the internet is becoming more and more representative of what, especially from a service, what a service could look like. And so that you don't need that personal contact as much as you needed to before. And oh, by the way, I can order a coffee cup from this office right now and get it delivered to my door, right? So take a look at what are all those components and why? Because again, now when I show you the customer journey, all these components are in that journey. And what you need to do is you're into cross channels and multi-channel cross channels to be able to make sure that you are where your customers are. And I'll make, I'll elaborate on that a little more as we go through that. Okay, so I talked about participation 10A. This yellow note here is just to emphasize that you're only to do one ideal climate. Tim Hortons likely has maybe a dozen key target market segments. You pick out one of them. So one of them could be, college students, and then you can articulate, what an ideal customer looks like in terms of being a college student. Okay, so what are some of the criteria? And oh, by the way, okay, I'll cover that little point. I'm not going to talk to you about it right now. So ideal client, it's a suspect list of people who fit the target description. And then you turn them into prospects, list of people who have responded to an offer for more information. So I'm really taking you down the opportunity funnel or the pipeline. Okay, and then all of a sudden, if they do buy something from you, they are clients. So the list of people who have tried your product, and then bonus, repeat clients, people who have upgraded or purchased more than once. And then they become champions. They're your advocates. I call them missionaries. They're the people who they're telling their cousins, they're telling their counterparts, they're telling their colleagues how great that your offering is, and how they should come to your they should access your area, and giving them a link, or sending sending a link to let them know where, whoever they're talking to, how to get to your product, right? So that's the piece, and so that you can have an ideal client here, in any one of these layers of that pipeline or opportunity funnel, or really kind of hone in on some of the greater ones that are repeat clients, because guess what? We're talking about a customer lifetime value. So a repeat client, maybe they came in and bought a cup of coffee for $2.50 one day, but if they've gone and been a customer to Tim Hortons for the last 10 years, can you imagine how much money that they've spent overall? The customer lifetime value over 10 years, is probably thousands of dollars. And really, that's what's important in finding those right ideal ideal clients or ideal customers. Okay, but here it is. And again, for the purposes of our participation, this one here is really important. Like in terms of you want the most profitable clients, but if you wanted to pick an ideal client that isn't one of the most profitable, I'm okay with that, as long as you go through all the other conditions, just to be familiar with what that exercise is all about, right? But ultimately, what you want to do, though, your ideal clients are your most profitable clients. Which clients recommend you to others? What are the common characteristics of these clients? So now we're getting into demographics and psychographics. What motivates them to buy? So now you're understanding what's their lifestyle like, what on the psychographic side, what are their values, and so how do you how can you motivate them to become a repeat customer or whatever? And then you create this biographical sketch, and that's what these 2 pages of the PowerPoint presentation is all about. When I talked about the artsy gal. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So let me just step back and say, there's many terms on the internet for ideal customer. There's ideal customer, there's ideal client, there's the customer persona, there's the buyer persona, and then the avatar. And so there's very many names. So they're all saying the same thing, but some people use those terms differently. I mean, it's not all just under ideal customer is what I'm trying to say. But what they look at is all the same stuff. They look at the demographics of the ideal customer. What type of personality is that, to understand how to motivate them? What are their preferences, so to understand how to motivate them? What are their pain points? And this is part of the value proposition I'm going to talk about from Alexander Osterwald, and I think I brought this up before, but what Osterwald talks about are the pain points and the gain points of a customer, and then the customer jobs. What does the customer have to go through from awareness all the way through to purchasing and beyond? What steps do they take? And if you cover off on making it easy for them to take those steps, that's just as important as understanding how to relieve their pain or how to provide gains for them. Okay, so that's where that's coming from. And then their goals. So the goals really give you a sense of what their preferences are, and reflects on their personality, and then their core values and communication style. And communication style is one of the key ones in today's world, because we're talking about bricks and clicks. We're talking about the hybrid approach now to be able to go where that customer is and in the various stages of their purchase timeline, their steps, and making sure that you cover them off, not only right from when they're aware, but after they've purchased, and now you want them to be advocates or champions or missionaries for getting more customers into your door. Okay, so here's where I make the pitch, is that you really can't identify an ideal client before you truly understand the organization's value proposition. But I'll say this, you really can't identify the value proposition until you've identified an ideal client. So basically, it's an iterative process. is what you need to do. So you really need to look at both of them, because both of them, each one will enhance the other. And that's why I just wanted to bring this, you don't have to do a value proposition, but if you understand it, well, then you'll see, how much it'll help you get to, create an ideal customer document, all right? So the value proposition, why customers should buy from you and not the competition. I mean, that's what that's all about. What do you have of value that it's uniquely better than everybody else, and so that customers will come to you for that offering and no one else, right? So what is it? Who's it for? When and where will it be used? And then how does that tie to the ideal client? All right. So here's Dr. Alexander Osterwalder's canvas for value proposition. And so let me go to when we did the ideal customer for the Art Barn, I took them through the value proposition as well. So I'll go right to that value proposition. All right. So for Amy Artsy, here's what we did for the Newton Street Art Barn in terms of identifying what the gains would be. So here's the Art Barn is basically, it's a rural museum, basically showing or highlighting local artisans creations and different artists like painters and vase makers and all those things. So what are some of the customer pains? Well, some people may not know how to get there. All right. So to relieve that pain, they'll talk about location of the facilities, or if someone has never stayed at a campsite, that's affiliated with the museum. They have a campsite, they have property where people can, it's in a tourist area close to the Great Lakes, and they look at offering camping so that these people will not only come, to enjoy the waterfront, but then they will be right in situ to be able to go through the Art Barn and enjoy some of the festivities, because they have festivals and everything else, what's going on. All right, so the thing is that, you'll identify the pain for the customer in the value proposition, and then in the actual offering, they'll talk about what pain relievers can you create. They'll identify, what would be an extra, to really kind of bring additional value, a gain to the customer. Well, then they'll talk about gain creators, and then here's are all the products and services that are affiliated with the Art Barn. And then the gain creators and the pain relievers affiliated with these pieces. And oh, by the way, then this really kind of maps to what the ideal customer of Amy Artsy is, to find the best attraction, and really get to, and we're going to talk about competitive advantage, but sustainable competitive advantage to the best, that they can probably get there in terms of making that happen. All right, so again, just to review, this link is just for an assistance. It's an ideal client template, but you use those questions to be able to design these two pages that you're going to submit. This is all that you're submitting is 2 PowerPoint slides, with the information under these categories, right? So that's what that's about. And then understanding, what is the customer profile all about? And so we start with modality, and what modality is, what's the channel? How are you going to, get to those people? How are they going to get, how are they going to access, your offerings? So you want to understand, in terms of your ideal customer, what's best suited for them. So I guess, if you're looking at a target market that works, downtown in the city, well, your modality is going to be probably a kiosk in one of the city center areas to make it really easy, right, to access and buy your products and services. And then you look at demographics, and that's that's about I don't think I have to go through that in terms of type of position, type of salaries that they make, and then the psychographics around what are their values, their desires, their goals, their interests, their lifestyle choices, and then sometimes. Yeah. Okay. So someone needs to mute here. All right. So sometimes. Okay. Just let me see. Okay, so I just muted that person. So sometimes you're a wholesaler and you're a B2B, like business to business. So sometimes, you know, it's not a person. So, you know, your ideal customer will be a business, and then you need to go into business demographics. And then what types of relationships, and then what motivates those customers. So that's the key piece around the customer profile that you want to kind of integrate into your ideal customer description. All right. Okay, so these few slides here are just another example of a, you know, and in this case we call it a customer avatar, but the ideal customer. So you can get a better example as well as, you know, what this one looks like. I pulled this one right off the net, so it'll give you a piece. So here's some demographics around age and relationship status and education and income. And then the interests in terms of what are they interested in. You know, this particular avatar is interested in fitness and wellness and bodybuilding. You know, so that gives you an idea of where you're going to find them in terms of, you know, so they may be active in a fitness forum somewhere, and that's where you want to do your advertising. You know, those kind of things, and other things. This piece, and then their behaviors. So, you know, that maybe they're big into charitable donations. So again, you understand how to motivate them based on those particular areas, and then what's general about them. Okay, so here's the, you know, the value proposition again, to be able to kind of align your products with your ideal customer. And then here's the, you know, the printout that I talked about. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears just a little bit now until we get the other 10B. And I want to talk about marketing. And, you know, I talked about, you know, we all started off with the 4 Ps that have been here for 50 years. Now I want to talk about the 8 Ps. And why? Because, you know, it's a lot more comprehensive now to do marketing. And again, it's bricks and clicks. And so that you need a hybrid approach to be able to find your customers, be where, you know where to work with them, know where to advertise, you know, all those other things. So let's just talk about that. So again, you know, let's start with product. So the product P is, you know, what you know, it includes the use and the design and the packaging and the quality features and the benefits and all those pieces. But I want to take you back to triple bottom line, because you're the actual, you know, leadership cohort now that are going to be making decisions in the next 10 to 30 years. And you need to, you know, I'm making this plea to be good ancestors. So when you look at product design, you should always be thinking about not just, well, let's create this product to sell, but let's take a look at the, you know, the timeline of the customer from the raw materials all the way through designing the product, and then when it becomes, you know, consumed, and then beyond consuming in terms of how can you extract, you know, what you could reuse or repurpose, and so that you can make products a lot more sustainable. And how we do that in today's world is we get everybody along that value chain, from the people supplying the raw materials to the customer, to the designers, to the marketers, and they all come together and they say, how can we make this product with the least carbon footprint? And how can we disassemble it after its overall intended use, so that we can repatriate some of those pieces where, you know, that doesn't go into a landfill. So that's the key thing around that. It's the new way of looking at the overall product design. So it's not only designed, you know, to create a value for a customer, but then, you know, it goes all the way through, and you get into the 5 Rs or 7 Rs of replace and reuse and repurpose and all those things, to be able to be good ancestors and to improve the sustainability of our world. All right. Okay, so price is really key. And again, you know, inside of price, it depends on packaging. So packaging also includes what we call bundling. And the best way to have a competitor be frustrated in trying to emulate what you've done in pricing is to bring maybe 2 or 3 offerings together, and they really don't understand, you know, how you've got to the overall price, so they can't match you. And yet you're providing a bundled value to the customer, which makes, you know, if they're affiliated products, which really improves. So an example, you know, Best Buy, they sell, TVs, you know, during Black Friday or Boxing Day. What they may do is they might say, all right, we're going to throw in the walls, you know, the wall stand for that TV, and that's a bundled piece. And then their competitor may not be able to match that, you know, that easily. So it gives them a little more competitive advantage. In terms of pricing, yeah, and in terms of place, so this is important, and you can see that there's some yellow highlighting here. That place really now in our new multi-channel, cross-channel world, place becomes access. And again, you know, I actually found this piece around, instead of place, focus on access. So to develop an integrated cross-channel presence that considers customers' entire purchase journey, instead of emphasizing individual purchase locations and channels, right? So you're bringing it all together, and that's why, you know, place really should be called access. And then promotion, you know, promotions consistent of content communications, messaging, persuade audience to buy. And again, you know, when we talked about the campaign portion of that, it's got to be, you know, all done in an alignment fashion, so that the customer, once they recognize the brand, you know, they know what you're all about, and then they understand, you know, where the value is as you're promoting to them. And then understanding people, and these people, they includes everyone your business touches, you know, from the stakeholders, you know, to the everyone in the value chain that ultimately gets that product or service out to the customers, and everybody adds to the value of that operation. And in today's world, I mean, we're all tied into supply chains, and that's where the people comes in terms of, regardless of where in the supply chain, when a customer buys a product or service, and it all reflects on the brand, right? It doesn't matter that it was a you know, a shipping contractor. They just see that as, you know, if you bought a Yamaha product, that's Yamaha's problem, not my customer, you know, not as a customer, not my problem. So that's key around the people. Principle, so let's read this. Principle means your business must stand for something more than making a profit. Well, principle is the brand. And that brand now needs to reflect this triple bottom line, because consumers are more aware today, and they want to know what you're doing for society and how you're improving and not, you know, not deteriorating effects on society, and what are you doing for the environment. And this principle, you know, is that brand promise that people are looking for. And I know myself, you know, when I buy things online, I will take a look at the actual brand of that product, because sometimes you have this great picture online and you don't get what you really think you're getting. But if there's a brand behind it, you have confidence that, hey, this is what I will get, all right? It's a brand promise. And then processes tie in the systems that people use. And then the process is so important, especially in the supply chain in today's world, so that the customer gets what they want, when they want, you know, where they are, and everything works well from there. And then inside of those processes are the systems like enterprise resource planning, where everybody can take a view of what's going on. And then the performance side is, you know,
tayong existing na obstruction pa po na hindi pa po natatanggal. Once na matanggal po yun, magkakaroon po tayo ng double date ng siraan. O sa akin po, nilagyan ng MMDA yung separator ng dalawang ang isa.
Okay. I hope that that wasn't the question. It didn't sound like it. Okay, so that's the part about the APs that you need to understand, and you need to understand that also is that this is the marketing mix, and the marketing mix is really the marketing strategy. It's the tactics, you know, that you're exercising. It's got nothing to do with economies of scale or anything like that. It's got everything to do with, you know, making it right for the customer in all aspects of the marketing strategy. So here's now where I bring in the customer journey map, right? And what you can see here is that this is the purchasing process. So, you know, when myself as a customer, I become aware of a product, and then I say, hey, I think I can use that. So I'm more interested, and I'll start checking on that product. Okay, what does it do? And will it fit my needs? And then who else is producing that offering? And then I'm saying, okay, I'm at the point now where I think I want to buy this thing. I want to try it out. You know, I want to see if this is going to work for me. And then I actually purchase that product. But once I purchase that product, you know, it's about this customer lifetime value. You know, as a vendor, you know, you want to retain those customers. You know, just because they purchase doesn't mean they're on their way, and make sure that they're completely satisfied all the way through their use to the point where now they're advocating on your behalf. You know, they're your champions. They're telling everybody, and they're bragging about you, you know, on social network, right? So if you take a look at that, there's these various points along this customer journey map where, you know, they're physical, and you know they're digitized, and you can see, so you know, from public relations to radio, TV, and print, word of mouth, online ads. You can see these parts here. You know, go in. This is pay per click. You know, so that you know you may have advertising through Google, and then and as they come to your website, you know, you'll pay for each sort of a potential customer, social ads, you know, reviews, blogs, media, and then, you know, for consideration, you know, myself as a customer, I'll use email to go in and find out more about that, and then I just may decide that, hey, I want to buy this product online, but I'll pick it up at the store. You know, I do that a lot of times if it's a local store, because I want to lock in the product. Maybe it's, you know, it's flying off the shelf too fast, and by purchasing it online and then picking it up, I've confirmed the order, or just buy off of somebody's website, or again, you know, as a customer, I'm in the community forum, you know, in terms of okay, so I'm a tea enthusiast, and I want to find out all about teas. So I join a tea forum, and lo and behold, if I'm a tea supplier, hey, I want to be, you know, I want to be advertising, and I want to be part of that community forum to be able to connect with my customers. And then, you know, just on the retention side, so you can have, you know, this is frequently asked questions, different promotions, and then you have you know, you have your champions that have, maybe some have their own blogs, or they're interacting with blogs, talking about the great products or services that they purchased. They're in social networks, you know, demonstrating the use of their product. And oh, by the way, you know, you might even get mentioned in a newsletter, or you have a newsletter that can capture your community, and you keep them informed and connected to you, right? So this is a really key piece of what's going on. Okay. So now we're going to talk about competitive advantage, and then, so what is competitive advantage? And it bases, you know, it's on innovation, on your own experience, so that, you know, you focus on products or services that have been overlooked, and you validate the market before jumping in. You know, you pursue innovation that customers will perceive as value added. You know, those are all the things that you consider, and you focus on new ideas that will lead to more than one product or service. You make sure you have sufficient capital to launch the product. So all these things are enablers to be able to develop competitive advantage And right now we're starting to approach the information that you need to do a VRIO, and we'll talk about that as we go along. But here's something that you really need to understand is that competitive advantage wanes after a while. So, you develop it, and then you deploy, and that's when, you're doing the best that you can. And then all of a sudden now either you're saturating the market or you have competitors that are coming in that are matching what you're doing, and then you start declining, based on dilution of the market and more entrants. And so how do you, how can you stay, up there, and that's where we say sustainable competitive advantage. Well, it's through cost leadership and differentiation. So we're going to talk about Michael Porter and his generic strategies. We're going to talk about first mover advantage. And if you want a really good book around, developing competitive advantage, you want to take a look at Blue Ocean Strategy by Kim and Mogern. And in terms of first mover advantage, what they recommend is you go into uncontested markets, where nobody's there. And that's what they call, a blue ocean, rather than try to compete, with all the sharks in a red ocean. And that gives you first mover advantage. And then you can actually, tie up the customer and create barriers to entry as well. Time-based advantage, in terms of getting in at the right time, having a technology advantage, and then working through strategic alliances. So these are all enablers to be able to create a sustainable competitive advantage. But what you need to understand in competitive advantage is that it's just as hard, to develop competitive advantage as it is just as hard to sustain competitive advantage. You got to keep on plugging, all right? And you can see that there's a balance to this, and so that, what is it? Well, distinctive capabilities in terms of, propriety rights, intellectual propriety rights, or exclusive licensing, or statutory monopolies, and then on the intangible side, you take a look at the brand strength, the leadership that you have, the knowledge and skills that in terms of core competencies, where you can create these products that are, that are way beyond, what's out there in the market, the teamwork, all these pieces now put together provide you in terms of, core competencies and technology and wherewithal and alliances to be able to assume the strongest and sustainable competitive advantage that you could possibly get together. And so, you want to reproduce these capabilities in terms of technical or financial or marketing, explicit knowledge, non-exclusive licenses, all these, come together to be able to give you competitive advantage. Okay, so I talked about this blue ocean strategy, and the thing is competitive advantage is a mix of process and people and technology. And the reason why I show you this illustration is because, people can, you get a new process in your shop. You're making hockey sticks, and you put this process together, and your competitor can emulate that, right? Or you buy a new hockey stick machine manufacturing piece. Your competitor can buy that. Or you hire these particular people. Well, they can take those people away from you. But when you combine this all together, the culture and then how the culture is integrated into the process and the technology, now that's hard to emulate, right? And so that gives you, in some cases, sustainable competitive advantage. Now, in my lifetime, I think that sustainable competitive advantage is almost an oxymoron, because you're always fighting to be able to stay ahead, and you really need to, move ahead in terms of, better technology or improving your product, or you always have to stay on guard. And now we're starting to come into, well, how to build that. So you got to be unique. You got to be hard to replicate. You got to be superior to the competition. It's got to be, you're in there for the long haul, it's sustainable and applicable to, multiple situations. So how do you get all this done? Well, Porter's 5 Forces helps you do a lot as well, like know your competition, know your target market, your ideal customer, anticipate the future. I talked about converging trends, where you can take a look at several trends that are converging, and you can, if you start analyzing that, you'll be able to predict the future a lot sooner, than what your competitors can. Effective marketing, keeping your customers happy and loyal, involvement in your community, offering a better price. All these things, come together in doing that. So now we're getting into let's look at a resource-based view, to be able to do that in creating a competitive advantage. So a lot of it's tangible. So a tangible is, well, it's a better mousetrap. It's designed better, it works better, it's cheaper to operate. And intangible is that, we have the key resources. If you ever have a problem, we have the best people in the industry that know how to help you solve any kind of your problems. Our brand, we're known for producing that best product in that industry. That's an intangible. We have trademarks. We have different internet protocol that we can do that. We have intellectual capital or intellectual pieces that are intangible. So all this kind of comes together to rely on the resources. But then you can see that it has to be heterogeneous, and again, you can't, if you can't move it around, if you can't replicate this somewhere else, by making it that it can only be done in maybe one location or whatever, then that gives you more competitive advantage. So what then? Then you start looking at this VRIO resources that provide that competitive advantage, and that's where we come into the topic 10B. And I told you what you needed to do here is that V is that what is it that's valuable, and what is it that's rare, and what is it in that product that you can imitate, and then how well is it organized. And if you can capitalize on creating more value, and that it's very unique, and you can't replicate it, and you've got the organization to be able to give you that, to maintain that capability. Because remember, I talked about people, process, and technology. The organization is part of that competitive advantage, and it's how it's integrated into process and technology, and so that in this 10B, you take a look at Tim Horton's resources, say in terms of industry knowledge. Well, they've been around a long time, and they really understand the retail coffee business, and they and they're tied in, say they might be tied into some alliances, and they're part of a larger corporation where they have synergies that they can draw from. So it's to identify these key pieces that you could talk about in terms of resource capability. So maybe pick one around the people side of it, pick one around the organizational side of it, and then pick one around the actual investment that they use in there. Okay, so what is VRIO? You're identifying valuable, rare, costly to imitate resources, and so you need to understand the strengths that can be used to take advantage of opportunities, how unique that your offering is, and how tough that it is to imitate. And is the company organized to exploit these resources, to leverage what they have and protect those resources? If you can't protect those resources, then someone can imitate. They'll be able to match what you're doing, and you need to constantly review that VRIO, because sustainable competitive advantage is fleeting, and you always have to kind of evaluate where you are to be able to maintain sustained competitive advantage. So this is the process that you go through, right? So if it's valuable, if it's not valuable, well, it's a competitive disadvantage. But if it is valuable to the customer, now you got something to work with. Is it rare? Well, now you got something to work with. If it's not rare, you know, if anybody can access it, well, then, you know, there's competitive parity. So you go through that piece to understand what VRIO means. And really, it's all these elements really that makes your business unique. You know, it's not just one thing. Excellent leadership, the brand portfolio that you have, the partnerships you have, the teamwork that you have amongst all your value chain partners and inside of your organization, your strong financial position. You know, where do you stand as a global player? You know, and even if you're not working, you know, in the global universe, you just need to go to the grocery store here in Red Deer and take a look at what's on the shelf. There's all kinds of global products on the shelves. So you may be a local producer, but you still need to understand, you know, your global competition. And again, you know, it's sort of, think global, act local, all right? And then well-managed processes and then innovative ideas. So that really kind of puts it through. So again, here's some ways to be unique. You know, the idea is here in the firms to maintain sustainable competitive advantage. You know, it has to control a set of exploitable resources in terms of, you know, value, rarity, and whatever, and then ways to protect. Be first to market with unique products, and then create barriers to entry. Set up exclusive service areas you can defend legally. You know, and so that let me give you an example. All right, so I owned a security company in Calgary. All right, and what we did is we negotiated an exclusivity in one part of Calgary that no other one of the company's security companies could come into our territory. You know, so that's the way of protecting some of your competitive advantage. You know, have a supplier agree to only supply your business. Be the only approved vendor. So there's ways to protect it, and then understand the ways to be unique. You know, so protected. That's, you know, you can't have it anywhere else. You know, it's in your area. Okay. So again, a little more on the VRIO to understand that piece. And again, how do you get sustained competitive advantage? A lot of yellow highlighting here because it's value, rarity, imitability. You can't imitate it, an organization to give you sustained competitive advantage. And then here's this framework that you need to fill out. You know, in this so is it rare? Is it hard to imitate? And you can see here that if it's a no, then you have competitive parity. If this is a no, you have temporary competitive advantage. If this is a no, you have unused competitive advantage. So those are the kind of things that you're looking at. Okay, so we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about product design, and this is the process, But look at this, defining the product vision is the very first step. It's not product research. You want to bring this component together and have a good clue of what the the actual value proposition is for that particular product, and that's by defining that product vision, the first piece. Then you do some product research. Then you understand how the user is going to use your product, and then you start getting into ideas on how you can improve that product and solidify that design so that it's robust and it's functional and it's economical, and then actually design it, and then you test and validate it, and then you post. When you're testing and validating, sometimes you'll do a pilot, in a particular area. So there's different cities in Canada that are designated as test cities for different products. Like Procter & Gamble use a city in Ontario. A name isn't, that doesn't come to me right quick right now. But if they want to test a new cleaning product, they'll go in that city and see how it does and learn, how the customer is adjusting to it, and then they would make you know, their changes to be able to do that in a post-launch so that they can you know, they have the best of what's going on. But again, you know, I talked about sustainability and design. You know, so when you're designing that product, you know, right from raw materials to the material processing to the manufacturing assembly, you know, you need all these components in to understand how to lessen the, you know, the carbon footprint of that offering, and not alone then once its main use is done, you know, how do you be able to, you know, recover what you can to make it as sustainable as possible. All right, and then, you know, here's a piece on how to do that. Marketing research, you know, what's the purpose? You know, you're providing insight into customer needs and wants, and you notice this is highlighted. You determine the appropriate marketing mix. You understand the external environment that could impact the target market, and you should know the difference, you know, between, you know, actual, you know, the different types of research. So normally what happens is you define the problem, and then you create a research design, and you can go into secondary data, and that's, you know, published data, and you'll find that in, you know, in industry publications or government publications, to really find out, you know, what this industry is all about, and you know, where you're going to play with the particular product in that industry that it belongs to. But then you may want to find your own information to get more specific, and they call that primary data. But where you start, you know, on this exploratory research side, where you create a focus group. So focus group really gives you a sense of having a conversation with potential customers and potential stakeholders to really get a sense of what are those key issues around that offering. And then you go into primary data and you test what you've learned in the focus group. And that's all part of exploratory research that you should really understand. And then once you do that, then you'll get into validating, you know, the focus group findings when you get into, you know, the qualitative and quantitative analysis of the research that you've collected to come up with the conclusions, right? So again, so in terms of exploratory research, you know, you're really looking at, you know, secondary data analysis, focus groups, and observational research, you know, before you get into, you know, descriptive and causal type of research going on, okay? There's the different kinds of primary research that we talked about, and then now the secondary research, and go through that. Again, you know, in design thinking, never lose sight of triple bottom line, and here's kind of a process where, you know, you find out, you know, what's going on, develop a deep understanding of what you need to do, then you define, you know, that problem, and then you come up with various ideas on how to, you know, brainstorm to create that solution. You run a prototype and then you test it, and then understand, you know, the product life cycle. You know, you can see that, you know, there'll be a, you know, this is a, you know, the investments, so they're negative profits because you're putting all this money into developing that product. You're going to spend a lot of money to introduce it to the market. Then all of a sudden now you start getting into, you know, a growth piece where you're selling a lot, and then it starts maturing because either you've penetrated the market, you know, totally, and there's less people buying it, or a lot of competitors now as new entrants have come in and they want to share the wealth with you, and then it starts to decline, and so that, you know, it all, you know, at each various phase, you're going to have different promotion, different pricing, different distributions based on the life cycle, and in some cases you need to revitalize that. I think, yeah. So here, you know, I'll talk about just DuPont. DuPont is a, you know, organic chemicals producer, and what their strategy would be is that they produce a brand new organic chemical, and new on the market. Nobody could do it at that point in time. and so that they're in, they invest in it, and then all of a sudden now it's really growing. So naturally, they would charge a premium price, and they're trying to recover, some of the investment that they put in there, and they're the only players in the market, so that they can charge those prices and get away with it, so to speak. And then what happens is they can only sell so much, right? You saturate the market, and you have other entrants coming in because they want a piece of that market. So what do they start doing then on the decline side? Is that they start dropping the price, into commodity pricing. So that gets back to this piece here, based on where you are in the life cycle of the product, you have a change in what you're doing, to the point where in some cases maybe you have to redesign and add different features and benefits to it to add to the longevity, or maybe you complement it with different types of augmented product, so now you can bundle a wholesale and then give it a little more life that way, because all of a sudden now you're a one-stop shop for the entire solution that your product is involved with. Okay, but you can see that in the competitive advantage life cycle, it's all about develop, deploy, decline. That's what you really need to think about. All right, talked about that. Just to give you a little bit of information on the pricing, you can see that you should really find out more about markup pricing. There's different types of cost plus and markup and whatever. So here's a little piece on markup pricing, so that you'll buy something at a particular cost, and you'll determine what kind of profit do I want, and that's the kind of markup that you put on that cost, and then that comes to be your selling price. So it may result in inefficiency. It also lowers profits, but it helps in developing a perfect pricing strategy, because you're making profit all the time, and you can ensure that. And then understand a little bit about the price strategies and go through these pieces. But loss leaders, lower than normal price to encourage purchase of items. You see this in a grocery store sometimes. Say if an average price of a loaf of bread is $5, they'll have a sale on Saturday saying, hey, we're selling bread at $1 a loaf, and people will come in because they want to get that $1 loaf, but then they'll buy $300 worth of groceries. So that's a loss leader. They're actually losing money on selling that loaf of bread, but they gained a lot of margin on all the other groceries that they sold because they brought customers in. Price skimming. So what you're doing is prices are high for a limited time before reducing them, and that's really what I talked about with DuPont, and then the other areas. So there's some more stuff. Understanding again that there's different areas of promotion, and learn about what billboards do, because sometimes they're not have the best returns on what they're doing. So go through these slides, and again, the marketing funnel is really important, and I wanted you to kind of understand how this connects with this with the customer journey. And you can see that the top part of the funnel, look at awareness, knowledge, interest, that's all part on this part of the buying step-by-step continuum. And then on the other side, to be able to maximize on customer lifetime value, you can see that that's the other side of the funnel and the marketing hourglass. So it's the greatest opportunity for growth is selling more products to existing customers. There's different ways of looking at how you can do that. And then, we're running out of time here, so I'm trying to get through a few of these slides. You should know a lot more about customer relationship management. And what is it? Well, it's a company-wide business strategy designed to optimize profitability, revenue, customer satisfaction by focusing on specific customer groups. But what it's doing, though, it's collecting information, so that you can actually work, both sides of this hourglass, to be able to understand how to work leads and and know, you know, how to attract those customers. And again, the CRM becomes a big part of enterprise resource management platforms, and also part of the you know, point of use systems, you know, that connect inventory to your website, to your customers. So again, you know, go through this piece to really understand what CRM is all about, the different types, and then, you know, just to know that AI is becoming more and more prevalent on either finding new ways to get to customers by doing some, you know, creating algorithms that will you know, have things pop out, to the point with to the point of actually doing, you know, a more rigorous analysis to pull out, you know, things about that piece. All right, so that's it for topic 10. You know, we're getting on our way. You know, I think by the end of the week I'll have all the cupcake assignments marked, and we'll be in the next throes of the next 3 topics, and that's the end of the year. And I'll in the next few days as well, I'll put out a notification of when the actual test 3 is going to be done. It's going to be done in the exam week, and it'll probably be done in the evening, I think, and at a specific date. All right, and again, you know, if you can't meet that date, let me know well ahead of time, because there's a lot less room to be able to make accommodations, you know, at the end of the term. Okay, and hope you're all doing well, and you know, keep your routines up, your success routines, get enough rest, and mind your diet as well. It all has to do with you know, good ways to keep your mind in shape to be able to study and achieve success. Okay, so that's it for tonight, and I will leave you. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to you know, to take any questions at all.